What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Brian, we haven't spoken in a while. I think because we've been speaking about Batman all the time, so...
Which is appropriate.
Yeah. And we're still going to talk a little bit about Batman today, but there's a lot of stuff that came out this past probably 2 weeks since we've done another show. First of all, we'd like to send out our condolences to the William Hurt family and his friends. Brian, I only first saw him in the Marvel world, and I thought he was a great Thunderbolt Ross, but from what I've read, he was a great actor, and he's done some great stuff. So it was pretty sad to hear that he had passed away.
For sure. And age 71, natural causes, just kind of a surprise. He seemed, last we saw, seemed very healthy. So it's just sort of the fragility of life, as we will. We lose him before his time. But obviously, I think for a younger generation, he probably is best known, honestly, as Thunderbolt Ross.
Yes.
But this is someone who won an Oscar for Best Actor in 1986 for Kiss of the Spider Woman, and really, like in the 80s, I believe he held or tied for an Oscar record where he appeared, and I think it's 5 consecutive films that were nominated for Best Picture. Like he headlined 5 consecutive movies that had never been done before.
Wow.
And he wound up winning in 86 as part of that. But Broadcast News, The Big Chill, these were all sort of like formative movies. He got a reputation, I think, as someone who was very picky. So I think when he became Thunderbolt Ross, the choice was curious because he was not known as the easiest, kind of like, he was very much like an actor's actor. And
he's so like Daniel Day-Lewis almost.
A little bit, or Joaquin Phoenix, like somebody who does great work and has that genius gene, but isn't really someone who just cranks out movies for the sake of doing movies. So when he took that role, I think it was a real win for Marvel, but a bit of a surprise that he was willing to kind of step into a role like that. So yeah, definitely a big loss. And we know Thunderbolt Ross is not gone forever from the Marvel universe, but it's not, and I'm not saying it's on the same scale as Chadwick Boseman passing, but it's just, you always feel it when you lose somebody of that caliber from your franchise, even if the character can live on and maybe in someone else's shoes. So yeah, he will be missed for sure.
Yeah. We'll be talking about, we'll be giving you guys some update on the Batman and its potential of getting to $1 billion. I want to sort of discuss that a little bit, Brian. We'll talk about Disney Plus and some of the changes that they've made. Deadpool getting, I guess people are very happy with the choice for choosing Shaun Levy to direct Deadpool 3. There's rumor of possibly Jayden Smith taking the role as Miles Morales. We'll get into that. Miss Marvel trailer came out. Zoe Saldana talked about watching 20 minutes of Avatar 2 and shedding tears because of how overwhelming and beautiful this movie is. And then we'll talk about a show that we've been talking about for quite some time, and I've been saying that this show is going to be one to watch. This is the big one. Brian, I've been calling it. Let's start. The Batman. Brian is at around 500 billion right now, 500 million right now.
Worldwide.
$500 million.
Yep.
They're sticking to the 45 days.
Before it goes to
HBO Max, yes.
Yep.
How long did it take the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix movie to get to $1 billion?
Well, it took several months, just in the sense that Joker ended up at 1.07, opened at 96 million domestic, and because of the Oscar buzz and ultimate nominations, it had a very strong hold. Remember, that was sort of like a late fall, kind of early holiday season movie, because Warner's was Warner Brothers was positioning the Joaquin Phoenix run for Best Actor, so they put the release date close to the Academy deadline, which is something you typically do, and it paid off big time because the movie struck a chord with audiences. So they got the box office. He gets nominated. The movie I think had 11 nominations in all. Didn't win for Best Picture, but basically every major person involved picks up a nomination, and so becomes a major awards contender. And then you kind of get that run into the early part of the year. So that's how it got to $1 billion, even with in our ratings. That's definitely an atypical run to $1 billion.
Yeah. Do you think Batman is on his way towards $1 billion? I mean, it hasn't been released in China yet, I don't believe. So when is it supposed to be released? This weekend? The following weekend?
So I'm officially revising my forecast to no, but it's not because of the movie. So it is being released in China this weekend. However, if you are following the news, China is being locked down pretty much nationwide again. So yeah. I don't think we're going to actually have a real feel for the true demand for this movie in China, because unfortunately, I think a lot of theaters, a lot of audiences are just not going to be able to go. So, and when I broke it down, things are pretty much going the way that we thought, which is the movie is going to, in the US, is going to make north of $400 million, which is outstanding and more than I think people would have thought for the first run of the Pattinson Reeves Batman franchise. And the reason you know that is because the domestic drop, first weekend to second weekend box office, was only 50%. That's incredibly good for a movie of this type. Usually movies of this type, you get a real front loading because the hardcore fans are there day one. There's a lot of hype, a lot of marketing, and then you usually get a drop of more like 60 to 65% week two. So when you come in at 50, that's usually indicative of you're going to have a long run. And we predicted that because there isn't a lot of competition. Like if you want to go to the movies and see a blockbuster, this is it until Morbius and Fantastic Beasts come kind of in April. And by that time, the Batman will be pretty close to being on HBO Max. So this is going to get, 400, 450 area domestic. So if you just do the math, say, all right, we need 550. We made 600 overseas to get to $1 billion. But in my mind, I was banking on China being maybe 200 million. The thought being that usually DC gets about 100. Aquaman did 300. They haven't had a US superhero movie in over a year. I was thinking maybe 200 million. That's how you get to $1 billion. But if they're only going to get, say, 50 to 100 because of COVID lockdowns, there's just not enough overseas to get you all the way to $1 billion. So I think you're going to see this probably now net 850 to 9, which is still firmly profitable. But you're going to have to asterisk it because you're going to be like, well, COVID did not affect the US much, but it definitely held back the international box.
Yeah, my projections for this film were pretty outlandish, but I had good reason for it. But as soon as I started really listening to, I guess, reason as to why this movie was possibly not going to get to the numbers that I was talking about, it was because of the long running time and because of how close to rated R this film is. So I was saying $1 billion for sure, especially with China opening. But now it doesn't seem likely. But I hope it does. But we'll see. It's still going to be out for quite some time, but I don't know.
I don't think it changes Warner's view of the movie, though. It is a smashing success, right? So and we've talked about the Batverse has changed a little bit, and maybe we should talk a little bit about that. But I think the studio execs heading into a merger that is literally about to close, very close, the Warner's Discovery merger, can feel safe knowing they have a hit. Batman is, again, a hit character. And people are excited for what comes next, whether it's the Penguin show, whether it's this Arkham show, which was the Gotham PD show. There is buzz for Batman again, and it's a positive buzz. So I think mission accomplished. Like I said, the movie is going to firmly make money. I mean, it's going to end up at a level where it'll probably be 4x what it costs, and that's more than enough to be profitable for the studio. So, we'd love to see that $1 billion, but let's put it this way. If they deliver a movie, if history is any guide, the second Batman movie in these franchises tends to be a bigger deal, and it's sometimes been well, certainly in Nolanverse, almost everyone thinks, I think, Dark Knight is superior to Batman Begins. There's actually a camp of people that thinks Batman Returns is better than Batman. I'm not one of those people, but there is a large hive that thinks that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we follow that pattern, easy, easy next time.
Yeah, let's get into some of the decision making going on over at Warner Brothers for these HBO Max shows. Apparently, one of the shows that we were very excited to see is Gotham PD, is sort of the year one of Batman from the perspective of a detective in the Gotham PD, and they sort of put that towards the side indefinitely, right? And they chose to obviously go ahead with the Penguin. This was something that they were talking about previously, right? And then the switch was made towards making a show about Arkham. We don't know what type of show, but they chose to do that instead of this. Brian, why do you think they did that? And I'm sure you're unhappy with this. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm not fully unhappy. I'm just unhappy we won't get to see Gotham PD. I'm not unhappy that we get an Arkham show, right?
No, of course.
Yes. But Matt Reeves officially coming out and saying that the Gotham PD show has been scrapped. And
that
it
was
didn't
upsetting
sound like
to me.
and it didn't sound like it was scrapped 100% because he wanted it to be scrapped.
Yeah.
It sounded like well, a little. So it sounded like there were some concerns about the parallels and proximity to the Ben McKenzie Gotham series. Like, did they tread too close to that? Having seen the Batman, I guess I'm a little skeptical of that because it would have been tonally set in that Gotham, and like that's not anything like what the Fox Gotham was like. And obviously Jeffrey Wright at the age of his Gordon is very different than where Ben McKenzie was as sort of like the young up and coming cop in the Fox show. When Bruce Wayne was literally a child. So I guess that fear seems unfounded. Matt Reeves gave some details about the story. It sounded pretty interesting as like a crime and detective, almost like procedural. But so I'm kind of bummed we won't get to see that. Now, I think as I sat back and I really thought about this, I actually think the Penguin had something to do with this. So here's why. So we knew before the Batman came out that they were not only giving the Penguin a show, but they basically ordered it straight to series, right? This wasn't like a pilot.
Yeah.
We saw the movie and then we clearly understood why. So that when he screened the movie, they got to see Farrell's transformation. These execs are not idiots. They saw the character and they were like, well, okay, that is going to work. A crime show based around this guy and this performance, done. Where do we sign? How much money do you want? But I think what that may have done was it may have pushed the studio to say, we want those bigger name characters to be carrying and headlining more of the show. So Gotham PD sounds great to you and me because we love the world. But all due respect to Jim Gordon, he's not the same name value to the average viewer that the Riddler, the Joker, the Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, like the Rogues Gallery is so deep here that I think they may have kind of said, hey, we feel safer if you can make a series that starts to bring together more brand name villains. And that's the route we want you to go. It does feel a little bit like a studio push to be like, hey, we want a safer bet. And I can't totally disagree. I actually think the Gotham PD show would have been awesome, but I can't totally disagree about the business decision of saying like, hey, we're just going to unleash these characters. And by the way, these portrayals can then maybe move back to the big screen as needed in future Batman movies.
Understood. Do you think?
Are you excited? Well, how excited are you? So I know you're as every bit as disappointed in me about Gotham PD. How excited are you about an Arkham-centric, kind of villain-centric show?
I think for me, Brian, what would make me even more excited is knowing that we may get some, and this is going for the Penguin too, despite how great Colin Farrell's character or his show will probably be, I still want to see Batman in there, involved somehow. whether it be a stunt guy for the entirety of the show or Pattinson's voice, whatever. But I feel like because we're moving forward in terms of time, he's going to be involved somehow, some way, similar to what we thought would be for Gotham PD, but for these other shows as well. I think he needs to be involved. And I think that was, I mean, not necessarily for the Penguin, but what gets me more excited is that possibility of seeing Batman and his influence on that world.
I think it's a good point. I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, so
Mhm.
there's the breadcrumbs here that make it a little bit possible is, remember, Robert Pattinson and Warner Brothers have this first look deal together. So they're in a lot of business together, right? So it would be not inconceivable that they execute something of a trade, right? And they kind of say, like, hey, you give us some cameos, you give us a couple days shooting time where we need it for some of our HBO Max shows. We will then give you maybe some of those more art house Oscar type runs that he's loved to do when he's not doing the blockbuster stuff. Like,
Yeah.
It's definitely fungible, right? We are not seeing Academy Award caliber actors bat an eye at the idea of being in these prestige TV shows now. So they seem very happy to take a TV role, take a movie role, work with the same studio. It would not shock me if he cameos in some of these.
And that makes perfect sense. If you're building a Batverse, this is how you would do it. And hopefully they go that route, Brian, because that's exciting. Disney Plus has made some changes. Brian is gonna. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this change, because there's no longer the family-friendly sort of thought when it comes to Disney might change for a lot of people, or probably already has. Now that you're introducing the choice of watching more mature, not so family-friendly type of programming. Obviously, it's understood that they want subscribers. They want that crowd. They want people to subscribe to Disney Plus. My thought initially was these shows were perhaps we're going to go to Hulu, which I think made more sense, but I understand also Hulu's not international, right? It's not. It's specific to the U.S. and some other places, right? It's not as big as Disney, correct?
Right. The reach of Disney Plus, and I guess it's called Star overseas, is greater than Hulu.
Yeah. So, how do you see this playing out, Brian? And you called the tier, because now we're having these tiers where you can watch ads on shows and stuff. Now if you want to pay less, you watch ads. If you don't want to pay less, you pay a little bit more and you don't get to see the ads. But Brian, where do you see this ending up for Disney, and what drove this decision, and where do you see this ending up?
No, what drove it is subscribers. I mean, it's an arms race for subscribers, and we know Disney's targets have been lofty. We saw subscriber growth slow a bit kind of as the pandemic waned. And you can definitely see the fingerprints of a studio that's continuing to experiment a bit in terms of how to get more eyeballs on the service. And for me, I guess it's funny because I guess I first got into really following movie scoops and rumors in the 90s, and so I was always aware that Touchstone Pictures and Disney were the same company. Mm-hmm. I think it's just for a lot of people, they would see the castle. And there was that psychology of, if I'm seeing that logo, it means family friendly. And now obviously Disney Plus kind of has the halo and like, so I think there's a little bit of that people have to get past. But to me, they're the same thing, right? It's just like, yeah, they're just different arms of the same company, and they're trying to put extra they have extra safeguards on this. This is not as easy as like you just pop in and it shows up in your feed, right? You, as a parent, you can lock and key the mature programming, and it's clearly earmarked. to where you can block it off. So I know it's drawn some outcry already. There's some parent groups have already kind of said they're not okay with it.
Yeah.
I just this is how it had to go. Like, to be at the end of the day, like, to be a truly scale player in streaming, it's very hard to choose to ignore an entire segment of the viewing audience, namely like the mature audience. It's just hard to say like we're going to have nothing that is in that category at all. Now, I happen to agree with you. I thought more of it would go to Hulu, but yeah, this is about getting people to pay that fee for the Disney Plus service, and over time, yeah, they'll have tiers of pricing, but they want to raise pricing, just like that's just like Netflix. Kind of every year, every 18 months, you get that little email that says your service is going to be 50 cents or $1 more per month. Does anyone unsubscribe because of that? No, because they have their queue and they have their shows and they have the new stuff that's always coming out. So that's 100% what this was about. And I think they want to make sure these things are getting into as many hands as possible. Now, I will point out something else and then kick it back to you. Have you noticed how Pixar has become pretty much a streaming house? So Turning Red was supposed to be a movie theatrical release. And last minute, they converted it to Disney Plus only. So these last couple Pixar movies have been going straight onto the service as opposed to going to the theater. So it's almost like they're trying to give the family-friendly crowd some extra, here's a little bonus for you. You don't have to go pay the movie fee. We'll give you this. But while we're giving you that, we're also going to be building a more adult and mature section over here. It's good. It has a little bit of that feel of like they're trying to give a little nugget to different parts of the audience.
Yeah. John Campea, I was watching his show and he said, Pixar is one of the best, if not the best, movie studio out. Before Marvel, there was Pixar that they were just coming out with bangers every single time.
Yep.
And now they've been moved over to straight up streaming. I don't know what it does.
Even though those movies historically made real money.
Yeah.
Like real money.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is like, what does that do for the talent over at Pixar when I guess I would say your dreams and aspirations was to have these movies come out in theaters, and now you've been regulated just to streaming. It just sounds like it'll bring down morale, I think, in that camp.
It's a real question, and it goes back to the question of contracts too, like what was promised versus what's now being, becoming a pattern here. And like I said, I mean, these were movies that were, very consistently between, 450, 500, 600, 700 million dollars, and they don't. These movies don't cost 250 because you're not paying a live action talent, right? So the profit margins on these were huge.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, well, I don't know. Let's see what Superpet's done and Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, to John's point and to what we're saying, if Disney is like, look, the only way to get this, and we're going to do 4 Pixar, maybe they're going to do 4 Pixar movies a year, 6 Pixar movies a year. The only way to see them is to subscribe to Disney Plus. People are going to do that if they don't already have the service, because those movies are as good as consistently good as they've been.
But is the buzz out there like that crazy, like they were before?
Well, Turning Red, a lot of people have said is like it's gotten great reviews. People are like, so this seems like safely one that would have made money. I noticed, it's funny, my kid is a big fan of the Ice Age series, and they dropped the new Ice Age movie the other day on Disney Plus. And I was like, I literally told her, I was like, they're going to keep doing this. Don't worry. You're going to get a new Ice Age movie but these were also movies that these are not Pixar movies, but these are also movies that made a ton of money in the theater when they were going to theater. So they're making the choice. So.
Yeah. Deadpool 3, we got some updates. It seems to be moving along. They have now added a director. He was the director for Free Guy, right? I don't know if you saw it, Brian.
I have not seen Free Guy. That is
Me
also on
neither.
Disney Plus, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Go ahead. I mean, it's a different. To me, it was an interesting choice because it's a different choice than who did the first two.
Yes. Yes. I haven't seen Free Guy either. I've been meaning to see it. I think I'm gonna have to see it to see what sort of, not necessarily that we're gonna get sort of the same style, but it gives you a good indication as to what Deadpool may look like. I think this is a good choice based on the popularity of Free Guy and the relationship Ryan Reynolds has with Shaun Levy. So I think this points to good signs, right?
It does, although I would say it also points to Shaun Levy strikes me as a little more Disney friendly than what Deadpool was. So you've probably seen at least one of his movies. He's not the biggest name in Hollywood, but Free Guy was a big hit.
Yeah.
Real Steel. I don't know if you remember that one with Hugh Jackman with the fighting robots.
Yeah, I never got around to see that. Did you?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an enjoyable film. It's a pretty. It's always you could argue it's a little bit safe, but it's entertaining. Like you sit down and you watch it, like, oh, it's family friendly, it's inspirational, all that sort of stuff. He also directed, if you watch the Ben Stiller Night at the Museum movies, which were big hits. And he's doing another Ryan Reynolds film that just hit Netflix and made some big viewership, which was The Atom Project.
That's being talked about a lot.
Yeah, so bottom line is, if you hire Shaun Levy, you're probably going to make money. Like, he's rarely lost the studio money on a bigger budget film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he has, like, on that list that I read you, there's not really like a pantheon film. Like, there's not anything that would like rise to, hey, I'm going to watch this 100 times and remember where I was when I saw it.
Yeah.
But as you say, this is very much got to be a Ryan Reynolds approved choice, right? This will be their third, I believe, collaboration. So they must be getting along. But like I said, Shaun Levy is not known, like the first two films, Tim Miller, David Leitch, these are hardcore action directors. These are guys who like to direct R-rated movies and know how to give you like pretty violent stuff. So Tim Miller went on to do Terminator Dark Fate. David Leitch, of course, has done a number. You actually might have seen the trailer for David Leitch's new movie, which is that Bullet Train with Brad Pitt, which looks sick, by the way.
Yeah.
So like that's a different motif than what Shaun Levy has been directing. Okay. So I am very curious to see what this means for how the tone of Merc with a Mouth looks now.
Very, very much.
Are you excited? Like, do you view it as a great choice? Or are you worried because of what I just said?
I'm not too worried. I'm more curious than anything else because for me, Deadpool 2 wasn't that great.
It was the same.
Yeah, it was the same. Yeah.
Felt like more of the same? Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah.
So this one is going to be different. How different? I don't know. And will the fans who were fans of the first and second one react differently to this? So I'm more curious to find the answers to those questions than for Deadpool 3. And I'm curious and interested to see how this Deadpool character is going to integrate with the current MCU, which I think is exciting for a lot of people to see.
Yeah, in a weird way, I actually feel like we've had this discussion about Daredevil, will they or won't they, in terms of R-rated versus not R-rated.
I wanted to get to that, but go ahead.
And in some ways, I actually feel like the way Ryan Reynolds established the Deadpool franchise, it's a harder thing to change. Like, I would actually argue, having seen The Batman, which was PG-13, you could probably sell me on a Daredevil that pushed the envelope to that level, but wasn't quite rated R, a little easier than you could sell me on, hey, we're going to make PG-13 Deadpool after the first two Deadpools that we got. I just don't see how that's possible.
Yeah. Daredevil with that style that we just saw in the Batman, I'm there all day. I don't see how. Um, and I think Charlie Cox said what he said regarding Daredevil working in a PG-13 world. It may be an indicator to leaning towards making, because of the move that Disney's making with their more mature stuff. I think the conversation is being had of whether to go there. And I think that's where we'll end up. And that's the hope, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Charlie Cox basically said he basically puts his faith in Disney and Marvel to figure it out. And if they bring him a PG-13 show, he's like, I'll buy into it. My guess is this is also something they can test, right? They can do a pilot, test it with audiences with a PG-13 edit versus an R edit and get some sense of like where the response is. Like this is the kind of thing you probably can put in the lab and figure out before you go to market. But I will say that like having seen the Batman, it did make me rethink a little bit of what was possible in PG-13. I'm actually still a little bit amazed the Batman got away with the amount of F-bombs and like violence and
those
darkness.
Are like what? How many were there? Like one or
There's
two?
There's a limit though. The MPAA has a limit on how many F-bombs you can use and not get tagged with an R rating. So they must have been at the max. But anyway, it made me feel like, all right, well maybe there's an avenue for this, but we'll see.
Yeah. We've gotten some news from Mr. Will Smith. He stated some info about his son preparing himself for a role that everyone's been asking for. Very popular character. And everybody seems to think that this is a role for Miles Morales, our new Spider-Man. Brian, when I saw this, I was like, the first two words were yeah, but. And that is, come on, man. We can find somebody new. The way you've handled Miss Marvel, you found somebody brand new. You found these lesser known actors for these big roles. Keep on doing that. And not to say that Jayden Smith is not capable of doing this. If he gets casted, it's just going to be, let's wait and see. I'm not necessarily going to be excited for it if this is true. It's going to be a wait and see. I don't want to end up seeing the movie and just seeing, oh, that's Jayden Smith. I want to see Miles Morales. The way I feel, the way I feel towards a lot of these characters, that when you see them, like, yeah, that's Captain America. Yeah, that's Punisher. Yeah, that's Howard Stark. I don't want to see, that's Jayden Smith playing Miles Morales. I want to see Miles Morales. I want to see a new face. What are your thoughts, Brian? I'm not excited for this. If it is true, I hope that they look for someone else. You know what I like Jayden Smith to do? Static Shock. I buy that. But your thoughts?
Worried. Now, to be clear, as you said, Will Smith, cryptic in his message, said he's training hard for an epic saga. So he was very, very cryptic about it. So there's no confirmation that is the character, but and we've seen, like, people are jumping on anything, right? They saw Taron Egerton was working out and taking some selfies in front of the mirror, and everyone's like, oh, he's getting ready to play Wolverine. It's like people are on pins and needles about these things, so we don't know. I'm worried though. I'm with you. Like, we had no history with Tom Holland when he was cast, and he just won us over in Civil War. Yeah. We do have some history here with Jayden Smith, and I can't profess to say I've ever loved him in the roles where he's been a star. Like, I didn't love his Karate Kid remake with Jackie Chan. Not a bad movie. I just didn't love the performance. I didn't love the film.
Yeah.
What was the After Earth? I mean, that was that was not happening.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are like instances where he's been set up as an action star to some extent. I just haven't bought it yet. So that's why I'm not, I'm not saying I'm with you. I'm not saying it's impossible, but to me, there's a little bit of baggage to overcome where I've been kind of underwhelmed by some of those star turns in leading roles. And this is a character they cannot screw up.
Yeah.
And they blow this like it's like a it's like a DC style, like it takes you years to get out of something like that and reset it.
And that's what I'm scared of. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to be honest, like Will Smith is probably a leading contender to win his first Oscar finally this year with King Richard. But I don't know, like, how do we feel about the Will Smith universe being around the Spider-Verse? Is that something we're cool with? Because I don't know if Jaden comes totally apart from his old man. Not saying Will Smith would be cast in the movie, but just that he have a say. Like, he might have a say in what's going on. That worries me a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Just like The Rock coming to MCU, I don't want that kind of that presence, Who knows? This could be for Bruce Leroy, Last Dragon. It could be that.
Well, they're making an I Am Legend sequel, right? Michael B. Jordan and Will Smith. Talk about a sequel to a movie that I don't really see how they're going to pull this off, but they say they're going to do it. So maybe they're starting the I Am Legend universe and he's in it. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Let's see, man. Let's see. We got to just wait and see. Brian, the Miss Marvel trailer. Finally seen it. I think when we first started off talking about in the past, we did a show. I think our most anticipated Disney Plus series, and I don't know what. I believe Miss Marvel's ranked high for you, right?
Yeah, I had a number 2.
You had a number 2, and that hasn't changed, correct?
Well, I switched it with Moon Knight when I saw the Moon Knight trailer.
Okay.
Well, I think the Moon Knight trailer. The Moon Knight trailer. Well, yeah, it's still up there, still in the upper echelon. But I switched it with the Moon Knight trailer. So.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not terribly excited for this just yet. I'm gonna see it because it's a part of the MCU, and I want to see how. I want to see this character because I know she's very popular, and I want to see them succeed with this one. Again, this is, establishing other younger superheroes in the MCU. And so there's a lot of questions to be asked for this, especially for me with the Inhumans. But I don't think her power is going to come from that, but I just want to see what it's going to be. But yeah, this is coming out soon. And Brian,
June.
I think June, right?
June 8th.
And this is June 8th, and this is going to be coming out. What show is going to be out at the same time?
Doc Strange is May, so we'll seen that already.
Okay. And Obi-Wan is in
May 25th. Obi-Wan is 2 weeks before this.
Okay. So finally, I heard when I was watching the John Campea show, they pointed this out. This is going to be the first time we see 2 big shows on at the same time.
Yep. So
we'll have another reason to just watch more Disney Plus instead of the once a week that we were on previously. I've been watching. I've been using Disney Plus to watch the X-Men show over and over and over again. Brian, what do you think about the Miss Marvel trailer?
So. Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to this for me. One is, I don't think you and I are the number 1 target audience of this show.
Yes, no, definitely.
And so you have to lens it both as you and me as the consumers of the product, and then you have to lens it as what would the target audience, for the younger target audience, how do we think they're interpreting this? Mm-hmm. I think this show has an opportunity to be huge based upon the trailer. I was getting, it had the vibes that I kind of expected, which is I sort of predicted this would be like Marvel's teen drama, teen dramedy type show.
Yeah.
Like, and they really don't have that, right? They don't
Yeah.
like when we have fun talking about comic book movies, and like there's a generation that's grown up on the MCU, but like they've grown up with adult characters. They haven't really had the ability, other than Tom Holland's Spider-Man, to really relate to a character who literally could be their classmate at school.
Yeah.
And this trailer, I thought was very effective in establishing Iman Vellani as that. She does the matter-of-fact girl next door who just has a dream and is growing up in a world where superheroes are real. I thought that was played really well in this trailer. So I was trying to imagine, like, all right, if I was 13, if I was 12, like, and I saw this, I think I'd be pretty fired up. I'd be like, this is aimed at me. This is for me. It's relevant and it's current. And I was kind of thinking, like, in a weird way, I had a little bit of like Smallville vibes. Like, that came out in 2001. At that point I was 22, so I was probably a little bit above the ideal target audience because they were freshmen in high school. But it had a little bit of that feel, that like that innocence to the Superman story of like, if you were a teenager, like, here's your teen high school story. It just happens to have Superman in it, the future Superman in it. And I think that's the right tone. So I think the trailer was very effective in both establishing that tone, but not giving you the good stuff. You got a little glimpse of the powers. You didn't get her showing off anything big. There's no appearance of Brie Larson, even though I think we've heard she cameos in this. So yeah, I think it did what it was supposed to do. I think we probably get one more of these, maybe in May, like closer to the show. But I think it makes sense for Obi-Wan, which is sweet spot audience, is definitely not teenagers, even though teenagers will watch it. And that's meant for OG Star Wars fans as much as anyone, right? And now you got this. I think it makes perfect sense to have these two side by side.
Yeah. This is going to be a pretty interesting May and June when these shows come out. There's a lot of excitement for this, especially for one of the shows that we're going to be talking about very soon.
And I think if this show hits, it is critical to the success of the Marvels. Like, if this hits and she hits, the buzz on that film is going to go way up.
Way up. Yup. Yeah. And it won't be a $1 billion fluke.
No, agreed.
Yeah. Avatar 2. Zoe Saldana has said that that she's seen 20 minutes of it, and she's very overwhelmed with emotion over what she saw. I'd have to say I believe her when it comes to something James Cameron is doing. I'm pretty sure we all felt that way after coming out of seeing Avatar, the first film. And this is being set in a different environment, same planet, but a different area of the planet and underwater. And I don't know what this is gonna look like, but it seems this is the movie that he wants us to see, and he's finally ready to show it. Brian, what do you think about some of the buzz that's going on around the Avatar 2?
Well, this is why I couldn't keep Avatar 2 out of my top 3 most anticipated films for this year. James Cameron has done this to us so many times to where, like, you have to give this man the benefit of the doubt. He's the mad genius. He is the mad scientist of filmmaking. And you had 20th Century Fox president Steve Asbell, who kind of said, it's going to blow you away. You have no idea what James has come up with. You have these comments, right? And normally we kind of get fisheye, right? When we hear this sort of hype, we're like, whatever.
Yeah.
But this guy, it's usually been true. So I'm like, he's waited 13 years for the technology to catch up with his vision. And every time that's happened, Terminator 2, Avatar, Titanic, the results have been impeccable.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be there. Like, I gotta see it. I don't know what he's coming up with, but I gotta see this. So yeah. Now, the only thing I would note is, so Zoe Saldana has seen 20 minutes. She did not tell us, is it 20 of 400 minutes? Is it 500 minutes? Because we know James Cameron don't like short movies. So but I'm excited. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
think the first trailer is going to be something.
Yes. You think we get that this summer, maybe?
Doc Strange. It's a
With
Disney
Doc
Fox.
Strange?
It's a Disney Fox movie, right? Don't they have this?
I don't know.
Yes.
Right? Oh, I think I've seen it on Disney
Plus. So Doc Strange. Okay. That'd be my prediction.
Okay, Doc Strange. Okay.
Be 7 months out.
All right, that makes sense. Let's discuss some of the delays, Brian.
Yeah, because it connects to Avatar. It connects to Avatar 2 a little bit. So yeah, let's do it.
So Warner Brothers announced more delays for some of the DC films that we were expected to see much earlier. Black Adam, Aquaman, I believe also has been moved. Everything, right? The Flash.
Even Super Pets got delayed 2 months.
Okay. One of the films, Shazam and Aquaman, I think is one of the reasons possibly for this move. Aquaman doesn't want to compete with the visual effects of Avatar. So I don't know. That's going to be very interesting to see the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's just quickly go down the calendar just so people have it. So
okay.
Super Pets was May 20th. Now July 29th of this year. July 29th was Black Adam. That movie is now October 21st.
Okay.
The Flash is now moving all the way back from this summer to June 23rd of 2023.
Wow.
And Aquaman, which was supposed to come out in December, 1 week ahead of Avatar 2, is now coming on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th of 2023. But as you mentioned, there is one movie moving up, and that's Shazam, which originally was June 2nd of next year. That is now taking the Aquaman spot 1 week ahead of Avatar 2. So that's a big reshuffle. And the official reason they cited was FX, so special effects delays related to the pandemic is the official stated reason that I don't totally buy.
So Shazam doesn't have that great special effects, or doesn't need it, or all I can say for Shazam, it's just probably the last we'll see of Shazam for quite some time. After this, it's going to be decimated at the box office.
I feel really bad for this production because I feel like Shazam 1 was critically appreciated, but the DC universe was so in the doghouse with fans that the box office was pretty underwhelming.
Yeah.
This movie adds some interesting acting talent, right? You get Helen Mirren, you get Lucy Liu, supposedly getting some cameos from some of the existing DC heroes, right? We heard Gal Gadot might be in this movie.
Yeah.
And they decide to move it 1 week ahead of Avatar 2. I mean, that's just code for that's code for we're giving up. That's code for we're going to run the white flag up. You got no chance at the box office of holiday season against Avatar 2. None. Now, I would have probably argued Aquaman 2 would also have had a tough time.
Oh, yes.
Would have lost real box. So I never quite understood why they had this so close to Avatar 2 to begin with. And I do think they're getting Aquaman 2 out of the way of Avatar 2 for sure. I don't buy effects delays on that. That is a tactical box office move. Yeah. But why sacrifice Shazam 2? That seems rough to put them in that spot. Couldn't figure that one. Unless the movie's bad, unless they think the movie's really bad. That's the only, like, if they've gotten an early cut and they're like, this thing is just not happening.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, there's those out there that really love Shazam. I'm not one of them. I don't know, Brian. Did you liked it a little bit more than I did? Correct.
I was pretty lukewarm. I think my biggest complaint, like I told you, I think was the Mark Strong villain just reminded me of too many other Mark Strong villains that I had already seen.
Yeah.
And I like what Zachary Levi brought to the character of Billy Batson. I like that part of it, but the villain part's where it kind of lost me. So it was very much like a one and done viewing for me, not a movie that I go and revisit. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see, man. The
Well,
excitement
can we talk
forever.
about Black Adam for a second, though?
Sure, sure.
Given how long we've waited for this movie, we finally got some footage, which kind of started to get us a little bit interested, and now we got to wait another 3 months. But we talk about placing, right? We talk about placing people, and we just had this discussion with the Batman about people got out of the way for the Batman, and that's turned out to be a good decision for other studios because the Batman is rolling at the box office. I thought Black Adam had a perfect spot on the calendar. The end of July. There's nothing really coming in August, certainly not in this genre. I've been very vocal about saying this movie has no chance at $1 billion, none, and I stand by that. I think this movie is $600 million if it's good.
Wow.
But I thought the best odds for that were where it was. October 21st is really interesting to me. Now, the October opening, Venom, Venom 2, they've done pretty well in that slot. The only issue is this year, if Wakanda Forever stays on target, I believe it's 2 weeks after Black Adam. So that could make things very tough for The Rock if the Black Adam movie is not great, because the buzz around Wakanda Forever is going to be immense.
Yes.
Immense. And people are going to come out for that.
Yes.
As much to honor Chadwick probably as the story itself. They're going to be there for that.
Yeah.
So Black Adam goes from having maybe a whole month of no competition in the summer to running smack into what should be an easy $1 billion movie 2 weeks later. I don't know, man. That's concerning to me.
It doesn't. I don't understand some of the changes. Some of them I do, but this one totally doesn't make sense. Especially like you said, a movie we've been waiting for so long, and we finally got some footage, and we were supposed to get it in July. Now we got to wait August, September, now October. We'll see. We'll see. And finally, Brian, the show that everybody's been waiting for. I've been saying for months now that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is the show that everybody's going to watch. If you're a Star Wars fan and you've loved what they've done with The Mandalorian, not so much with Boba Fett, but you still are interested in this world, and especially for those who have been there from the beginning. To see this, the showdown once again between Obi-Wan and Vader, see a very powerful Vader. This is not the robotic movement we saw in the original Star Wars trilogy of this dude couldn't raise his hand for nothing. Now he's gonna be, who knows what he's gonna look like, and how he's gonna fight, and what power he's gonna show, and what character are we gonna see in this younger version of Vader. We already see from the trailer that Obi-Wan is left to just watch over a kid. His life is over. And this is a defeated Jedi or former Jedi. And this is going to be epic, in my opinion. Brian, what are your thoughts after you've seen the trailer? What do you think is going to, what sort of fanfare you think this show is going to be? And what sort of expectations do you have for this show?
Well, look, I mean, Memorial Day, going all the way back to 1977, has been Star Wars weekend. That's when the original Star Wars opened and became a phenomenon. And, they've often used it when they brought back the new trilogy, when the new trilogy came out in Phantom Menace came out, Memorial Day weekend. they obviously switched that for Force Awakens, but Star Wars is tried and true. So it's not a coincidence that this series is dropping on Memorial Day weekend. The trailer, in some ways, is kind of what you'd expect, which is as little of Obi-Wan and as little, meaning none, of Vader other than his breath. Because you don't need to sell, who you need to sell those characters to? You don't need to sell that to anybody. I mean, it says something about the original, about the prequels, that they can be as reviled as they are, and yet Ewan McGregor retained a basically unanimous approval rating for his version of the younger Alec Guinness and Obi-Wan. We don't get a single shot of him in action, right? We get him in the shadows. We get him watching a young Luke Skywalker, which was very nostalgic and very cool. What we got was they're trying to sell you on a little bit of the new stuff. And I thought the Grand Inquisitor looked great. Rupert Friend as a character who has been in the animated show in Rebels, brought to life, sounds menacing, looks menacing, and yet we already know he's not even close to the biggest bad in this show, because that's obviously Darth Vader. So awesome job, I think, of kind of introducing you to the Inquisitors and kind of getting you curious about what they're going to do without actually showing a true action set piece involving Obi-Wan. So I love the trailer. It was awesome to hear the music, right? They bring back the relevant themes from Phantom Menace, Duel of the Fates. They bring back music from Revenge of the Sith, and of course they have the Force theme from the original series. Thought it was fantastic. Can't wait to see more. And I think the other thing that really excited me was off-world. Me and Tatooine. So to see what some people have described as the Hong Kong of the Star Wars universe, that sort of neon lit up planet they were on. Super duper excited that we're going to different places, as part of this. I don't know, like what was your favorite moment, or what was your biggest question kind of watching the nearly 2 minutes?
I don't think I had a question per se. I think I just enjoyed what they gave us, because I didn't expect to see much anyway. But seeing, one of the questions I may have had is what sort of journey or adventure Obi-Wan has to, what's going to take him off Tatooine? What's the reason for him having to leave his post per se, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the questions I probably have. And I think that's gonna lead him towards Vader. Most likely not on Tatooine. I don't know if Vader's gonna get that close. But that's the showdown everybody's gonna be waiting for. So
he can't get that close, I think, for one continuity reason, which is obviously they're right over Tatooine at the start of A New Hope, and he doesn't act as if he knows where they are.
Yeah.
So if he now knows where they are, it sort of invalidates that entire opening sequence of the trilogy. So we see the Inquisitor on Tatooine. I don't think you can. So here's my questions that came out of this, just curiosities. What would you place odds that part of Hayden Christensen's role in this series is flashback as Anakin, in addition to being Vader?
Well, I'm pretty sure they're gonna de-age him, right?
Like, any chance we see a little bit, almost like a retconning of like Revenge of the Sith, like almost like between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, like something that flashes back to that time period when he was still good?
Possibly. I think one of the things that I ask myself about the Vader's appearance is if he is shown outside of his mask, and if he speaks, what is he going to sound like, right?
This is part of why I'm asking the question, because James Earl Jones is still the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case and Hayden Christensen is not always physically inside the suit, what is he doing?
That, yeah, that's one of the more intriguing questions for me. Um, but yeah, there's certainly been talks of there being some flashbacks of Obi-Wan remembering certain moments or whatever. Perhaps it could be Vader's visions while he's sleeping. Who knows? But at this point, I have no idea what they're going to be showing us with regards to Vader and why Hayden Christensen is there. So we're definitely going to be seeing him. Whether I think we're going to get a little bit of perhaps if I had to put money on it, we're going to get a little bit of both.
I'm with you. I feel like now we've been told Vader became progressively more machine-like over the course of his time inside the suit. So even if he has the full suit, we know even in Empire Strikes Back, he was taking off the helmet because he was in like the back of the tank or whatever, or at his base. So I think for the Christensen performance and for him to come back, I have to believe he gets to play Vader as Vader using his own voice in some way, even if it's modified and not the James Earl Jones voice. Because I just don't think he would have signed up for a performance where he's literally just inside the suit and then stunt double, then his voice is replaced. But that also what led me to, I think we might see Anakin. Like I think we might see a flashback of something in like an episode that goes back, almost in the way that part of the Boba series was all flashback. I think we might see that so that we can see them side by side again too.
There was also talk of sort of that Tony Stark sort of what do they call it inside the helmet?
Oh, like the Jarvis, like you. Oh, I see. Like you see the heads-up display, but it's his face or something.
The HUD.
That could make sense.
Yeah, and perhaps we see that, and the voice when he speaks that's what we're hearing, but outside of it is Vader. Who knows?
That could be.
Who knows? But
that could be.
Whether that may be distracting or not, I don't know. Let's see, because his acting voice is jarringly different than the actual Vader voice. So
the other question, which I know people are asking about, is there's that silhouetted, shadowy shot of someone with a very familiar looking blaster. I have a tough time. Well, it's Han Solo's gun for sure, is what it looks like. I have a tough time believing Han is in this show, but it's at least got people talking as to why they would frame the character with that particular firearm, which is pretty distinctive looking.
They just can't. It's Han Solo's like Elvis. They just can't let him go, yo.
Well, who would this be? I mean, I can't believe they bring Alden Ehrenreich back. So is this a de-aged Harrison Ford, like a de-aged Mark Hamill? Now that they've perfected that technology,
they gotta let him go, man. I don't get it. But we'll see. Before we sign off, Brian, people have been talking so far about Moon Knight because some people saw like the first 4 episodes, and they're talking about this being like the best thing that Disney has put out. Are you more excited after, I don't know if you read or heard some of those reactions towards the show, but are you getting more and more excited for this?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think for me, like I said, I think for me, when Ethan Hawke signed is when I kind of like, I'd opened my eyes. I have such respect for his choices. I just was like, that is not a guy who would have signed on for a run-of-the-mill formulaic show. So, and he didn't sign up to play like an elite brand name villain. Like Arthur Harrow is not really like in the same class as some of the villains we've seen. So that made me even more curious. But you watch some of the featurettes online and how they talk about this show and the look of it. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Like I said, I think it helps this show that there's really no preconceived notions or baggage, right? We're not coming in with like a history from the films or a history from another TV show that didn't work. Like this is completely fresh, and I like that. They can go.
Yeah.
There's no direction I feel like if they don't do this, it's a lost show. There's none of that. It's just a blank canvas. So I'm super psyched.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to be excited about, man. I'm looking forward to this show. I've been talking about this show for a while now. I'm going to be looking at this show because everybody sort of, not everybody, but people have said and compared Moon Knight to Batman. And I've always wanted a Batman series. I think we're close to that at some point, hopefully within this universe. That Matt Reeves is building, we get something like that. But if not, I'm pretty sure it's something that we're going to see hopefully in our lifetime.
So, I think the Batman did them a solid in the sense of the Batman established such a distinctive tone now that Batman's been reframed.
Yes.
And it is clearly very different than this iteration of Moon Knight. So to the extent anyone had that question or comparison going in, I actually think they're in a fortunate spot that we have the Batman playing, looking like it does versus this.
Yeah, that's our show for today. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of some of the our discussion and what we said regarding some of these news items that have come out. Will Batman hit $1 billion? What do you think about Disney and the changes that they're making? What do you think about the choice for Shaun Levy directing Deadpool 3? What do you think about Miles Morales possibly being played by Jayden Smith? I'm not on board for it. Static Shock, yes. Give me Static Shock. I buy that. Miss Marvel trailer, what do you guys think of that? Are you excited for Avatar 2? Are you getting excited? Or I know you're starting to hear some talk about the movie. What do you think about? Are you disappointed about the delays for the DC movies? I am. I wanted to get it over with, really.
Well, just on that point, I actually think I'm also a little bit sad because I feel like the Batman, has given the DC, even though the Batverse is different than the DCEU, just giving them a lift, right? They just had, they just had whatever we think of Peacemaker. It was a big hit, so they had a hit on HBO Max. Now they have a hit in the theaters, and then we get this gap, and it's just a shame that they couldn't kind of build that momentum into some of these other films.
Yeah. Gibbs, curious, how much do you think of this has to do with the Discovery merger that's supposed to happen?
I have a tough time seeing. The only reason I have a tough time seeing that is because these projects were so far along that the personnel working on these should not have been affected, and we weren't aware of any major production shutdowns, recently. So it's just, that's what I said. It just kind of smells of something else. Like I said, I think we understand the Aquaman one, which is box office related. Black Adam one is the one I'm probably most
confused about.
But we'll see.
So let us know what you also think about the Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm telling you, man, everybody's going to be watching this and is excited for it like as much as we are for it. Thank you once again for joining us. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, comment in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time on the Nerd Gen Report.